Part 1. A Simple Haircut. Ethan hadn't planned anything special that day. It was just another quiet afternoon, the kind that drifted by without leaving a mark. The sky was pale, the air slightly cool, and the streets held that familiar, almost comforting emptiness of routine. He walked with his hands in his pockets, heading toward the small barbershop on the corner he'd visited since he was a teenager. The bell above the door chimed softly as he stepped inside. The scent of aftershave and freshly cut hair wrapped around him instantly. Clippers buzzed in the background, steady and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. A couple of men sat waiting, flipping through old magazines, while the barber, an older man with steady hands and a calm expression, looked up and nodded. "Same as usual?" he asked. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't sure why, but something inside him shifted. "Actually, maybe a little shorter this time," he said. The barber raised an eyebrow, slightly amused. "Feeling adventurous today?" Ethan gave a small, awkward smile. "I guess." He sat down in the chair, the leather creaking softly beneath him. As the cape was draped over his shoulders, he caught his reflection in the mirror. There was nothing remarkable about him. Brown hair, slightly messy, quiet eyes, the kind of face that blended into a crowd rather than stood out. And yet, today felt different. The clippers started, and locks of hair began to fall. Ethan watched as small pieces of himself dropped away, collecting on the floor. It was strange how something so simple could feel like a change. Time passed in silence, broken only by the occasional snip of scissors and the low hum of the shop. When it was over, the barber spun the chair slightly. Ethan looked at himself again. The haircut was sharper, cleaner. It framed his face differently, somehow making him look more confident. Or maybe that was just in his head. "What do you think?" the barber asked. Ethan paused. "I like it," he said, a little surprised. He paid, thanked the barber, and stepped outside. The air felt fresher now, cooler against his skin. He adjusted his jacket and began walking down the street, unaware that this simple decision, this small change, was about to lead him somewhere completely unexpected, somewhere that would change everything. Part 2. The Collision. Ethan walked slowly, hands still tucked into his jacket pockets, occasionally glancing at his reflection in passing windows. The haircut felt new, different enough that he kept noticing it, unsure if it really changed anything or if it was just in his head. He exhaled softly and turned the corner. That's when it happened. Thud. Ah! A sudden impact jolted him backward. Something, or rather someone, had collided directly into him. Ethan stumbled slightly, catching himself just in time. "I'm so sorry," a voice said quickly. Ethan blinked, trying to process what had just happened. Standing in front of him was a girl, about his age, holding a camera that she was now checking anxiously. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking up at him. For a second, Ethan forgot how to speak. She had bright, curious eyes and a slightly messy hairstyle, like she had been too focused on something else to care about fixing it. A camera strap hung around her neck, and her expression carried both concern and embarrassment. Yeah," he finally managed. "I'm okay." She sighed in relief. "Good. I didn't break anything. Or anyone." Ethan let out a small, nervous laugh. Then she tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Wait," she said. Ethan froze. "What?" She stepped a little closer, narrowing her eyes, not in a bad way, just observant. "That haircut," she said. "You just got it, didn't you?" Ethan instinctively touched his hair. "Yeah, like 5 minutes ago." A smile spread across her face. "It looks really good on you." His brain stopped working. "Oh, thanks," he said, immediately feeling his face warm up. She didn't seem to notice his awkwardness, or maybe she did and just didn't mind. "I'm serious," she added. "It suits your face, clean but not boring." Ethan had no idea how to respond to that. Before he could say anything else, she adjusted her camera slightly, as if an idea had just sparked in her mind. "Hey," she said suddenly. Ethan tensed. Yeah? She hesitated for just a moment, then spoke with unexpected confidence. Would you be okay with doing a quick photo shoot? Silence. Ethan stared at her. I mean, what? She smiled, a little sheepish now. I'm a photography student. I was out looking for interesting faces and natural light, and then I literally ran into you. And honestly, you've got a really good look. Ethan blinked again. A photo shoot? Him? I don't usually ask strangers, she added quickly, but you just fit. His heart started beating faster, not from fear exactly, but from something unfamiliar. He had never been the kind of person someone noticed like this. I'm not really, he started, then trailed off. She waited, patient but hopeful. Ethan swallowed. This was completely out of his comfort zone, but for some reason, he didn't want to say no. Okay, he said quietly. Her face lit up. Really? He nodded, still unsure. Yeah, sure. Awesome, she said, adjusting her camera with renewed energy. I promise I won't make it weird. Ethan gave a nervous smile. It was already weird, but somehow in the best possible way.
Part 3. In front of the lens. They moved to a quieter street just around the corner. The buildings there were older, with textured brick walls and soft shadows cast by the late afternoon sun. It was the kind of place that didn't try to stand out, but somehow looked perfect through a camera lens. The girl adjusted the strap of her camera and looked around with focus, as if the entire world had just turned into a frame waiting to be captured. This is perfect, she murmured. Ethan stood awkwardly a few steps behind her, unsure what to do with his hands. So what do I do? He asked. She turned to him and smiled reassuringly. Nothing complicated, just be yourself. That was not helpful. Ethan shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I'm not very good at that. She laughed softly, not at him, but warmly. Good, that means you won't overthink it. He was definitely overthinking it. Okay, she said, raising her camera. Just stand there, by the wall. Ethan obeyed, leaning slightly against the brick surface. He tried to look natural, but the moment she pointed the camera at him, every movement suddenly felt exaggerated. His hands didn't know where to go. His posture felt wrong. Even his breathing seemed too loud. Relax, she said gently, noticing the tension in his shoulders. You're doing fine. I feel like I'm not, he admitted. She lowered the camera for a second and stepped closer. You don't have to perform, she said. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for real. Her words settled something inside him. He exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. She lifted the camera again. Click. The sound was soft but precise. Good, she said. Now look slightly to the side. He did. Click. Now just think of something that makes you calm. Ethan hesitated, then let his mind drift. The tension eased just a little. Click. There it is, she said, almost to herself. Ethan blinked. What? That expression, she replied, smiling. You stop trying. That's when it works. He wasn't sure he understood, but he trusted her. Minutes passed. The rhythm of the camera clicks became almost soothing. With each shot, Ethan felt a little less awkward, a little more present. At one point, she laughed. What? He asked, slightly concerned. You actually look confident, she said. He stared at her. That's impossible. She shook her head. No, it's just rare for you, maybe. He didn't know what to say to that. Eventually, she lowered the camera, reviewing the photos on the screen. These are really good, she said. Ethan stepped closer cautiously. Can I see? She turned the camera toward him. He looked. For a moment, he didn't recognize himself. The person in the photos looked different, more composed, more interesting, like someone who belonged in those frames. Is that really me? He asked quietly. She glanced at him, then back at the screen. Yeah, that's you. You just don't usually see it. Ethan felt something shift again, something subtle but real. Maybe this wasn't just about photos. Maybe it was about seeing himself differently. He looked at her, about to say something, but then paused, because for the first time he realized something else. He wasn't just being photographed. He was being noticed, and somehow that mattered more than he expected.
Part 4. Turning the camera around. The photo shoot slowed, then quietly came to an end. The golden light had begun to fade, stretching long shadows across the street. The air felt softer now, calmer, like the moment itself didn't want to rush away. She lowered her camera, satisfied. "I think that's enough," she said. "You did really well." Ethan let out a small breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "I survived." She laughed. "Barely." He smiled, a little more naturally now. There was a pause. Not awkward, just new. Ethan shifted slightly, glancing at her camera. "You're really good at that." She shrugged, suddenly a bit shy. "I just like capturing things the way they feel." He nodded. "It shows." Another pause. Then, without fully thinking it through, Ethan spoke. "Do you want me to take a picture of you?" The moment he said it, he almost took it back. But she froze, just for a second. "Me?" she asked. "Yeah, I mean, you took all those photos of me. It's only fair, right?" She hesitated, fingers tightening slightly around the camera strap. "I'm not really used to being on the other side," she admitted. Ethan gave a small, understanding nod. "Neither was I." That made her smile. "Okay," she said softly. She handed him the camera, carefully, almost like she was trusting him with something important. Ethan took it, feeling its weight in his hands. It felt different now, not just like a device, but something meaningful. What do I do?" he asked. She laughed lightly. "Now you sound like me earlier." "Fair enough." She stepped back a little, standing where the light still touched the ground gently. But she looked unsure. Her posture wasn't as confident as before. Her hands didn't know where to rest. Her eyes avoided the lens. Ethan noticed. "Hey," he said quietly. She looked up. "You said something earlier about not trying to be perfect." She blinked, then smiled faintly. "Just be yourself?" she said. "Yeah," he replied. She took a breath and relaxed just a little. Ethan lifted the camera. For a moment, everything felt still. Then, click. He lowered it slightly, checking the frame. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. He looked back at her. "You look good," he said, a bit more confidently this time. She laughed softly, brushing her hair back. "You're just saying that." "I'm not," he said. Something in his tone made her pause. "Okay," she said quietly. He took another photo. Click. This time she smiled more naturally, and for a brief moment their roles had completely reversed. She was no longer just the observer, and he was no longer just the shy subject. They were both part of the same moment now, and somehow it brought them a little closer. Part 5. Through his eyes. Ethan adjusted his grip on the camera, still slightly unsure, but less nervous than before. "Okay, maybe turn a little to the left?" he said. She did, a bit hesitantly. "Like this?" "Yeah, that's good," he replied. Click. He checked the screen again. The photo wasn't technically perfect. He didn't know much about angle for exposure, but there was something about it, something honest. She stepped closer. "Let me see." He turned the camera toward her. She studied the photo for a moment, then looked at him, surprised. "That's actually really good." Ethan blinked. "Really?" "Yeah," she said, a little more serious now. "You captured the light well, and it feels natural." He didn't know how to respond to that. "I guess I just did what you told me," he said. She smiled. "You listened. That's harder than it sounds." He looked at her again, this time not through the lens, but directly. "Maybe," he said. There was a quiet shift between them. "Take a few more," she added softly. Ethan nodded. Click. This time she looked more relaxed, her shoulders loosened, her expression softer. Click. She laughed mid-shot. Click. And somehow that one felt the most real. After a few minutes, Ethan lowered the camera. "I think that's all I've got," he said. She stepped closer again, standing beside him as they looked through the photos together. There were small imperfections in each one, but also something genuine in every frame. "These are different?" he asked. "Bad different?" She shook her head. "No, honest different." Ethan liked that. She took the camera back gently, holding it close again. Then he hesitated before speaking. "Hey, do you want me to take a picture with my phone, too?" The question came out more casually than he felt. "Your phone?" She blinked. "Yeah," he said, "so you have them too, not just on your camera." For a moment she looked uncertain again. Being photographed once was one thing, but this felt more personal, more direct. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. Ethan noticed the hesitation immediately. "It's okay if you don't want to," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to—" "No," she interrupted gently. He stopped. She took a small breath. "It's just, I'm not used to it," she said. He nodded. "Me neither." That made her smile again. "Okay," she said after a moment. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. This time, the roles didn't feel as separate. There was no photographer and subject, just two people, both a little shy, both stepping slightly outside their comfort zones. He raised his phone. She stood there, uncertain but trying. Click. The sound was softer than the camera, almost quiet enough to miss, but the moment wasn't, and somehow it felt even more real than before.
Part 6. A different kind of photo. Ethan lowered his phone slightly, glancing at the photo he had just taken. It wasn't perfect. The lighting was simpler, the angle less precise, but somehow it felt more personal, less like a photo and more like a moment. He looked up at her. "You don't have to pose," he said quietly. "You look better when you don't." She let out a small laugh. "That sounds like something a photographer would say." "I'm not a photographer," he replied. "Maybe not," she said, "but you're starting to sound like one." He shrugged, slightly embarrassed. "I'm just copying you." She smiled at that. "Then you're doing a good job." Ethan raised his phone again. "Okay, maybe just walk a little," he suggested. "Walk?" she repeated, unsure. "Yeah, like normal, not like you're being photographed." "That's harder than it sounds," she said. "I know," he replied. "Trust me." She took a small step forward, then another. At first, it was awkward, her movements slightly stiff, her eyes unsure of where to look. But after a few seconds, something shifted. She stopped thinking so much. Click. Ethan captured her mid-step, her hair moving slightly in the breeze. "Wait, let me see," she said, stepping closer. He showed her. Her expression softened. "That's actually nice." "See," he said, "you don't need to try." She looked at him for a second, thoughtful. "Neither do you," she said. He wasn't expecting that. There was a quiet pause. Then she looked around, as if noticing something. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Stand over there." Ethan blinked. "What?" "Just trust me." He hesitated, then moved to where she pointed. She lifted her camera again, instinctively. "You're not done?" he asked. "Not even close," she replied with a small grin. Click. This time, the photo felt different. It wasn't just about his appearance anymore. It was about the moment they were sharing. They took turns again after that. Camera, phone, back and forth. Each time, the photos became less about how they looked and more about how they felt. At some point, they stopped worrying about angles completely. They laughed more, spoke more, forgot about time. Eventually, Ethan lowered his phone. "I think we've taken a lot of photos," he said. She nodded, glancing at her camera. "Yeah, we did." Another pause, but this one felt comfortable, easy. "Do you want me to send them to you?" he asked. She looked up. "Yeah," she said softly. "I'd like that." There was something about the way she said it, not just about the photos, but about staying connected. Ethan unlocked his phone. I guess I'll need your number for that." She smiled, just a little shyly. "I guess you will." And just like that, something small turned into something more. Not yet love, not even close, but definitely something worth continuing. Part 7. exchanging more than photos. Ethan held his phone in one hand, suddenly very aware of how simple and how significant this moment was. "So, your number?" he asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated for just a second, then stepped closer and gently took the phone from his hand. "I'll put it in," she said. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, typing. Ethan watched, feeling oddly nervous again, even though he had just spent the last hour with her. "There," she said, handing the phone back. He looked at the screen. Lena, camera. A small smile formed on his face. "Lena?" "Ethan," she replied, as if confirming it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then his phone buzzed. A message. "So you don't forget me." Ethan looked up. "I don't think I would," he said quietly. Lena tilted her head slightly, amused. "You say that now." He smiled, a little more confidently than before. "I mean it." There was something different in the air now. The awkwardness hadn't disappeared, but it had softened, turned into something lighter, easier. "Send me the photos when you can," she said. "I will," he nodded. "And you too." "Deal." Another small silence followed, but it didn't feel like an ending, just a pause. "Do you usually run into strangers and do photo shoots?" Ethan asked. She laughed. "No, you're a rare case." "I feel honored," he said, half joking. "You should," she replied with a playful smile. Ethan looked at her, then at the street around them. The light had faded almost completely now. The day was quietly slipping into evening. "I should probably head home." "Yeah, me too," Lena agreed. Neither of them moved right away. "Well?" Ethan started. "Well?" she echoed. They both smiled. "Text me when you get home," he said, surprising even himself. She raised an eyebrow slightly. "Already making sure I'm safe?" "Just making sure you don't disappear after this," he said. She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "I won't." That felt like a promise. They began to walk in opposite directions. After a few steps, Ethan turned around. She did too. They both laughed softly. "Okay, that was awkward," she said. "A little," he admitted. "See you, Ethan." "See you, Lena." This time they kept walking, but something had changed. They weren't strangers anymore. They weren't just two people who bumped into each other. They were something undefined, but real. And as Ethan's phone buzzed again in his pocket, he already knew. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning.
Part 8. Late Night Messages. Ethan got home, but his mind hadn't. He tossed his keys onto the table, kicked off his shoes, and sat on the edge of his bed. The room felt the same as always, quiet, familiar, but something inside him had shifted. His phone buzzed. He picked it up instantly. "Did you make it home?" Lena. A small smile appeared on his face. "Yeah, just got in." He paused, then added, "You?" The typing dots appeared almost immediately. "Same, and I didn't trip into anyone this time." He laughed softly under his breath. "That's disappointing." A few seconds passed. "You want me to do it again tomorrow?" Ethan blinked. His heart skipped slightly. Was she joking? He typed, erased, then typed again. "I might be ready this time." There was a pause. Then, "Confident already?" "Don't get used to it." "Too late." Ethan leaned back against the wall, staring at the screen. The conversation felt easy, natural, like something he didn't have to force. It had been a long time since talking to someone felt like this. "Photos?" she texted. "Oh, right." He quickly opened his gallery and selected the best shots he had taken of her, the candid ones, the ones where she wasn't trying too hard. He hesitated for a moment before sending them, then pressed send. A few seconds passed. Then, "Ethan." His stomach tightened slightly. "Yeah? These are really good." He exhaled. "You're just being nice." "No, I'm serious. You captured me better than I expected." He didn't know what to say to that. Then another message appeared. "Wait, I'm sending yours." His phone buzzed again, this time with images. Ethan opened them and froze. The photos Lena had taken of him looked incredible. Not because he suddenly looked like someone else, but because he looked like the version of himself he never noticed. Calm, natural, confident even. "That's not me," he typed instinctively. "It is," she replied. He stared at the screen. "You just don't usually see yourself the way other people do." Her words stayed with him longer than he expected. They kept talking, about small things at first, music, favorite places, random thoughts. Then slowly, without realizing it, the conversation deepened. Time passed, hours, neither of them noticed. At some point, Lena sent, "It's late." Ethan glanced at the time, 2:17 a.m. "Yeah, it is." A pause. Then, "I had fun today." His heart warmed. "Me too." Another pause. "Good night, Ethan." He hesitated, just for a moment. "Good night, Lena." He set his phone down, but sleep didn't come immediately, because for the first time in a long time, he was thinking about someone else, and it felt nice. Part 9. Something to look forward to. The next morning felt different. Ethan woke up earlier than usual, not because he had to, but because his mind was already awake. For a moment, he just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying fragments of the previous day. The barbershop, the collision, the photos, Lena. He reached for his phone. A new message was already there. "Good morning." He smiled without thinking. "Morning." He paused, then added, "You wake up this early often?" The reply came quickly. "Only when I have a reason." Ethan felt something shift in his chest. "And today you do?" "Maybe." He sat up, running a hand through his hair, still getting used to how it felt. "So what's the plan today?" she asked. Ethan blinked. Plan? He hadn't thought that far. But now that she asked, "I don't know, I was thinking of doing nothing." "That sounds boring." "It usually is." A short pause, then, "Wanna not be bored together?" Ethan stared at the message. His heart started beating a little faster. "What do you have in mind?" "There's a small park near the river. Good light, good space, less chance of me accidentally tackling you again." He laughed quietly. "Sounds safer." "So is that a yes?" Ethan didn't hesitate this time. "Yeah, it's a yes." "Good. Meet me at 3?" "I'll be there." He put his phone down and stood up. The room felt brighter. Or maybe it was just him. For the first time in a while, the day ahead didn't feel empty. It felt like something was waiting. At 2:45, Ethan was already at the park. He told himself he just didn't want to be late, but the truth was, he was excited. The river flowed quietly nearby, reflecting the afternoon light. A few people walked along the path, but the place felt calm, open. He checked his phone. 2:58. Then, "Hey!" He turned. Lena stood a few steps behind him, camera in hand, a soft smile on her face. This time there was no collision, just intention. "Hey," he replied. She looked at him for a moment. "The haircut still looks good," she said. He smiled slightly. "I already told you that." "I know," she said, "just confirming." They stood there, facing each other. Less awkward than yesterday, but not completely comfortable either. And somehow, that made it better. "So," she said, adjusting her camera strap, "round 2?" Ethan nodded. "Round 2." But this time, it wasn't just about photos. It was about something forming, something quiet, growing between them, something neither of them fully understood yet, but both of them wanted to explore.
Part 10. Getting Closer. The afternoon light in the park was softer than the day before. It filtered through the trees, creating gentle patterns on the ground. The river moved slowly beside them, its surface catching reflections of the sky. Everything felt calm, almost like the world had slowed down just enough for them to notice each other more clearly. Lena lifted her camera. "Okay," she said. "This time, you're not allowed to be nervous." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds unrealistic." She smiled. "Then at least pretend you're not." "I can try," he said. "Good enough." Click. This time, something had changed. Ethan wasn't as stiff. He didn't overthink every movement. He didn't worry as much about how he looked. He just stood there. And somehow, that was enough. "See?" Lena said, lowering the camera. "You're already better." "Or you're just better at your job," he replied. "Both can be true." They moved around the park, stopping at different spots, near the river, under a tree, along a quiet path. The rhythm returned. Click. Pause. Laughter. Click. Conversation. But this time, the conversation didn't stay light for long. "So," Lena said as she adjusted her lens, "are you always this quiet?" Ethan shrugged slightly. "Mostly." "Why?" He thought for a moment. "I guess I just don't like saying things unless they matter." She looked at him differently after that. "That's rare," she said. "What about you?" he asked. "You talk a lot." She laughed. "I do, but I also hide behind it." Ethan frowned slightly. "Hide?" "Yeah," she said, lowering the camera. "It's easier to be expressive than to be honest sometimes." He nodded slowly. "I get that." There was a brief silence, but not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. "Okay," Lena said, breaking it gently. "Your turn again." She handed him the camera. Ethan took it, feeling more confident this time. "Stand over there," he said, pointing toward the river. She followed without hesitation, but something was different now. She trusted him more, and he could feel it. Click. He captured her looking out at the water. Click. Then turning slightly towards him. Click. Then smiling, not because he asked her to, but because she wanted to. "That one," he said quietly. "That one's perfect." She walked over. "Let me see." He showed her. She stared at the screen for a moment longer than expected. "You're getting really good at this," she said softly. "I think it's just easier with you," he replied. She looked up at him, and for a second the world around them faded again. No camera, no posing, just two people, standing a little closer than before. Something had shifted. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but enough to feel it. Enough to know. This wasn't just about photography anymore. It was something more. And it was only just beginning. Part 11. The Unspoken Feeling. The sun began to dip lower, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. The park grew quieter as people slowly drifted away, leaving behind a peaceful stillness. Ethan and Lena sat on a bench near the river, their cameras and phones resting between them. Neither of them rushed to speak. It wasn't silence in the awkward sense. It was the kind of silence that felt full. "I like this," Lena said finally. "This?" Ethan asked. She gestured lightly around them. "This, the quiet, the photos, not having to pretend." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, me too." He glanced at her. There was something softer about her now, less guarded than when they first met. The confidence was still there, but it wasn't hiding anything anymore. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why did you say yes yesterday?" "To the photo shoot?" She nodded. He thought about it. "I don't know," he admitted. "I almost said no." "Really?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. "It's not exactly my thing." "Then why didn't you?" He hesitated. "Because of you, honestly." Lena looked at him, surprised. "Me?" "You seemed genuine," he explained, "like you actually meant it, and I guess I didn't want to miss that." Her expression softened. "That's a good answer," she said quietly. "What about you?" he asked. "Why did you ask me?" She smiled faintly, looking down at her hands. "At first, the haircut," she admitted. "It caught my attention." Ethan laughed lightly. "So it worked." "It did," she said, "but that's not why I kept taking photos." He waited. "You felt real," she continued.
not trying to impress anyone. That's rare. Ethan looked away slightly, not used to hearing things like that. Another pause settled between them, but this one felt different, heavier. Not uncomfortable, but meaningful. Lena shifted slightly, turning toward him. "Ethan." "Yeah?" She hesitated. For the first time since they met, she looked unsure. "I feel like something changed," she said softly. He felt it too. "I think so," he replied. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them looked away. No jokes, no cameras, no distractions. Just the quiet realization that what had started as something random was becoming something important. Neither of them said the word. They didn't need to, because sometimes feelings don't need to be spoken to be understood. Part 12. The First Step. The sky had deepened into a soft evening blue, and the first lights along the river began to glow. The world felt quieter now, wrapped in that calm moment between day and night. Ethan and Lena were still sitting on the bench, but something had shifted again. Not dramatically, just enough to feel it. "I don't really want today to end," Lena said quietly. Ethan looked at her. "Me neither." She let out a small breath, almost like she had been holding it in. "Is that weird?" she asked. "No," he said. "I think it just means it mattered." She smiled at that. "It did," she said. A gentle breeze passed between them, lifting a few strands of her hair. Without thinking too much, Ethan reached out, then paused. Too close, too soon. But Lena noticed, and instead of pulling away, she stayed. That was enough. He let his hand fall back, slightly embarrassed. "Sorry, It's okay," she said softly. "You don't have to apologize for that." He nodded, but his heart was racing. There was a quiet tension now, not uncomfortable, just new, like both of them were standing at the edge of something, unsure whether to step forward. "So," Lena said, trying to lighten the moment, "what happens now?" Ethan thought about it. "Well," he said slowly, "normally people just go home." She laughed. "That sounds very you." "Yeah," he admitted. "But we don't have to do normal," she said. He looked at her. "What do you want to do?" he asked. She hesitated, just for a second. "Take a walk," she suggested. He nodded. "Yeah, let's do that." They stood up together and began walking along the river path. This time, they didn't leave space between them. Not completely. Their shoulders brushed lightly once. Then again, neither of them moved away. The conversation came back, but softer now, more personal. They talked about small things again, but everything felt different, more intentional, more meaningful. At one point, their hands brushed. They both noticed. Neither reacted immediately, but a few steps later, Ethan gently reached for her hand. And this time, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers slipped into his, warm, certain, real. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't need to, because that small moment, that simple step, changed everything. It wasn't just about photos anymore. It wasn't just curiosity. It was something real, something growing. And for the first time, they both let it happen.
Part 13. Something more. The days that followed felt different for Ethan. Not louder, not more dramatic, just fuller. What had started as a chance encounter slowly turned into a routine neither of them planned, but both of them looked forward to. They texted every morning, met whenever they could, sometimes for photos, sometimes for walks, sometimes for no reason at all. And somehow those no-reason moments became the most important ones. One afternoon, they sat on the same bench by the river. No cameras this time, just them. "You didn't bring it?" Ethan asked, nodding toward where her camera usually hung. Lena smiled. "I didn't feel like hiding behind it today." He looked at her, understanding more than she realized. "That's new," he said. "Yeah," she admitted. "You make it easier." Ethan didn't respond right away, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how. Instead, he just smiled. That was enough.
They had learned each other's small habits. Ethan noticed how Lena played with the edge of her sleeve when she was nervous. Lena noticed how Ethan looked away slightly when he was about to say something honest. And slowly, they stopped hiding those things. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Always," he replied. She hesitated. "I think I like you," she said, her voice softer than usual. Ethan's heart skipped. He had felt it, known it, but hearing it out loud made it real. He looked at her, really looked. "I was hoping you'd say that," he said quietly. She laughed nervously. "That's not an answer." He took a small breath. "I like you too." The words felt simple, but they carried everything. There was a moment of silence after that. Not awkward, just meaningful. Then Lena smiled, a real one, not hidden, not careful. "So what does that mean?" she asked. Ethan thought for a second. "I don't know exactly," he admitted, "but I think it means we keep going." "Together?" she asked. He nodded. "Together." This time, when he reached for her hand, it wasn't uncertain. And when she held it, it wasn't shy. It felt natural, like it had always been meant to happen. The world around them stayed the same. The river flowed. The light shifted. People passed by without noticing anything unusual. But for Ethan and Lena, everything had changed. Because somewhere between a haircut, a camera, and a simple conversation, they had found something real. And now they were ready to see where it would lead. Part 14. Through the hard moments. Time moved forward, as it always does. Days turned into weeks. Weeks slowly became months. And what Ethan and Lena had built together didn't disappear. It grew. But not without challenges. At first, everything felt easy. They spent time together constantly, walking, talking, laughing, sharing pieces of themselves they hadn't shown anyone else. But life doesn't stay simple forever. One evening, Lena sat beside Ethan, quieter than usual. "You've been distracted," she said. He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "You've been somewhere else," she replied, "even when you're here." Ethan hesitated. She wasn't wrong. "I've just had a lot going on," he said. "What kind of a lot?" she asked gently. He looked away. "Stuff," he answered. That was the first crack. Over the next few days, things felt off. Their conversations became shorter, their silences heavier. Lena noticed everything, but she didn't push. Not yet. Until one day, "Ethan, talk to me," she said, her voice firm but not angry. They stood near the river again, but it didn't feel like before. "I am talking," he said. "No," she shook her head. "You're avoiding." He sighed, frustrated. "I just don't want to bring my problems into this." "This?" she repeated. "You mean us?" He didn't answer, and that silence said enough. Lena took a small step back. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "You think you have to deal with everything alone." Ethan looked at her, conflicted. "I don't want to ruin what we have," he admitted. Her expression softened, but there was hurt in her eyes. "You're not protecting it," she said. "You're pushing me out of it." The words hit harder than he expected. For the first time since they met, they didn't know what to say. No laughter, no easy recovery, just distance. That night, they didn't text. For the first time in a long time, nothing. Ethan sat on his bed staring at his phone. He replayed everything, her words, her expression, the way she stepped back. And for the first time, he realized something important. Liking someone wasn't enough. Being close wasn't enough. If he kept shutting her out, he would lose her. Meanwhile, Lena sat by her window, her camera resting untouched beside her. She scrolled through the photos they had taken together, moments that felt so alive, so real, and now so fragile. She whispered to herself, "I just wanted him to let me in." The next day felt heavier than all the others. But sometimes it's not the perfect moments that define something real. It's what happens when things start to fall apart. Because that's when the choice appears. Walk away or fight for what matters. And neither of them had decided yet.
Part 15. Choosing each other. The next morning felt unfamiliar. No messages. No good morning. Just silence. Ethan stared at his phone longer than he wanted to admit. Every minute that passed made the distance between them feel more real. Finally, he stood up. Waiting wasn't helping. Avoiding hadn't helped either. There was only one thing left to do. Lena was by the river again. The same place. The same bench. As if some part of her hoped things could return to what they were. Her camera rested beside her, untouched. She wasn't taking photos today. She was thinking. When she heard footsteps, she didn't turn right away. She already knew. "Hey," Ethan said. She closed her eyes briefly before looking at him. "Hey." There was no smile this time, just honesty. "I'm sorry," he said. No hesitation, no excuses. Lena studied his face. "For what?" she asked quietly. "For shutting you out," he replied. "For thinking I had to handle everything alone. For making you feel like you weren't part of it." She didn't respond immediately. He stepped closer. "I thought I was protecting us, but I was actually pushing you away." Her expression softened slightly. "That's exactly what it felt like," she said. "I know." He nodded. "And I don't want to do that anymore." A pause. Then, "I don't want to lose you." The words hung in the air. Real. Unfiltered. Lena looked down for a moment, then back at him. "You scared me," she admitted. "Not because you had problems, but because you wouldn't let me be there for you." Ethan swallowed. "I was scared too. Of messing this up." "You almost did," she replied softly. He nodded. "I know." Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't distance. It was a moment of decision. "So what now?" Lena asked. Ethan took a small breath. "Now, I try to do this right. With you, not without you." She searched his eyes, looking for doubt. She didn't find any. "Together?" she asked. He nodded. "Together." A few seconds passed. Then Lena stood up. She stepped closer, close enough that there was no space left for hesitation. "If you shut me out again," she said quietly, "I won't stay." "I won't," he promised. This time, he meant it differently. Not as words, but as a choice. She looked at him for one more moment. Then, she hugged him. Not carefully, not shyly, just real. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, holding on a little tighter than before, because now he understood. Love wasn't just about the easy moments. It was about choosing each other even when it wasn't easy. Later, they sat together again. The tension had faded. Not completely forgotten, but understood. Stronger because of it. Lena picked up her camera, glancing at him with a small smile. "One more photo?" she asked. Ethan smiled back. "Only if we're both in it." She laughed. "Deal." And as the camera captured that moment, it wasn't just a picture. It was a beginning of something deeper, stronger, real. And this time, they were both fully in it. Together. Always.